$5 million. Job for this ghetto slick. Putting it down.
No, little nigga ain't mine. What you think I'm off fly? You look just like Genuine. I know we been topping our spine. Could it be that nigga doing time? That got that stupid ass in the bind. Back in 99, when everybody thought you was so fine.
Yo, knock it off, love, you killing me. He couldn't be mine. He too yellow, and your skin darker than mine. Straighter hair, too good. Both her eyes is rough. He ain't got my eyes, they ain't brown enough. You playing baby shower stunts. I was counting the months. All I'm thinking is why me and what the you want? You better call that pretty boy up and harass him. Ja told me that you was locking with him. I ain't your baby father, ain't even close to that. Now what I look like? Forget it, don't answer that. I'm probably a fool. You know what? You're probably right. Like I'm probably his pops and I'm probably white. Get on before you get jumped on and such. That little nigga ain't know what you stone or what. You can't lie. Ja, your baby dash. You need to slow down, love, cause you're moving too fast. Tell him, Ja.
Little nigga ain't mine. No, what you think I'm off fly? You look just like Genuine. I know we been topping our spine. Or could it be that nigga doing time? That got that stupid ass in the bar. Back in 99, when everybody thought you was so fine. The nigga ain't
Ain't nothing.
no,
Ain't with that shit. Girl, you got some kind of nerve. All I done for you, ain't got no words for you. Just have your and go by your baby father, cause I'm not him, no. What you think I don't know? You're still low. Better go follow me.
Look, they got the same head display, the same eyelashes, the same DNA kid, the match ain't clashing. Asking about somebody up north, you killing me soft. You wanted it raw, said your broke off. Met Genuine one time, you tryna beat me in the head with that. Meet me in the bed with that, to trigger these drawers. Since I let you dip in it, check the birth certificate, put a clip in it. Yeah, that's yours.
no, little nigga ain't mine. What you think I'm off fly? You look just like Genuine. Yeah, I know we been topping our spine. Or could it be that nigga doing time? That got that stupid ass in the bar. Back in 99, when everybody thought you was so fine.
Dude told me how them hoes be. Straight OC, try to set Ja up. Now she know me, end up like Carew. But no cold D's. It's the truth when you raised off of OZs. Only raw for you, it's the oral, it's awful. Now she tryna say that kid mine is gon' cost you. Never forced you, but named the clinic. Can't respect your hustle, life ain't a gimmick. Like the night I was in it, love was love. Room full of lie smoke, freaked on a high note. Now she cry broke, hate to kill your high hope. Just ask me though. Don't try to get live, ho. Scams ain't for stroll. Plans ain't good slow. Besides, I ride rough, you just ain't a pro. It take pain to grow, no game to know. That little nigga ain't mine, what you say, Ja?
No, little nigga ain't mine. What you think I'm off?
But think I got stupid on my head.
Just like Genuine. I know we been topping our spine. Or could it be that nigga doing time?
That brother right there.
Stupid ass in the bar. Back in 99, when everybody thought you was so fine. No, little nigga ain't mine. What you think I'm off fly?
Tell me.
You look just like Genuine. Baby, know we been topping our spine. Or could it be that nigga doing time? That got the stupid ass in the bar. Back in 99, when everybody thought you was so fine. Ain't no.
What they say, 0%, right?
You a lie.
What you think that flies?
This a lie.
Nah, that ain't no lie, you a lie.
Nah, this is a lie.
Nah, you know dog high, but she fucked with another nigga, you hear me? That motherfucker say 0.
So then it say he ain't the dad. This ain't 0, all the way 0.
An envelope? What could this be? What could this be? It's not shaking. It's not my necklace, I don't think. Let's open this up. Ooh, it feels kind of thick. Okay, hold on. It may be. Pape? This better be a ticket to Dubai for 2 weeks straight, round trip. Because you know I've been wanting to go to Dubai.
Open it up. Yeah, read it.
What is this?
You know what it is? I just want you to know that I know. Nevaeh is not mine. She's not my daughter.
Why did you do this tonight out of all nights? Why?
Because I wanted you to know that I know Nevaeh is not mine. I've had doubts. So
What
I went at a
doubts?
DNA test. Nevaeh is not mine. She's not my daughter.
Why would you do this? She loves you though. Why would you do this?
She's not my daughter. Why would you do this? Why would you cheat?
Shout out to the Black Squad. I am Kenyatta Black. Do the platform a favor and hit that like button on your way in. Nothing helps to build the platform more than you hitting the like button. When you hit the like button, it tells YouTube to go ahead and push the video into the algorithm, which exposes my content to new viewers, which helps me gain subscribers, thus growing the platform. So go ahead and hit that like button, hit the thumbs up button. It doesn't cost you $1 to hit the like button. It costs you nothing. All right, so go ahead and do that. Hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you are not subscribed already. Man, I'm telling you, I plan on growing this channel substantially this year. I plan on going hard in the paint and growing the hell out of this channel. All right, so hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you like the content, support the content. Bless the Cash App, $ Black Squad. Today we are going to discuss a matter of great importance, and that matter is paternity fraud. Paternity fraud. Did you know that paternity fraud is the only kind of fraud in the world that is not criminalized? Do you know that paternity fraud is the only kind of fraud in the world that nobody goes to jail for? And we are going to get into the reasons as to why that is. We are going to discuss how the government, as well as other entities, benefit financially from women committing paternity fraud. We are going to discuss the state-sanctioned extortion of men that is taking place every day here in America. America, of all places. It's happening around the world, but in America, of all places, America, a country that likes to use pretty sounding words like democracy, freedom, justice, liberty, pursuit of happiness. This is the last country on earth that this should be taking place in 2024. And we are going to discuss it today. I'm not going to hold anything back. We're going to review some videos, and we are going to have a good discussion. And I'm going to do my best to lay this out as well as possible. Now, first, I want to take a look at this clip, right? Now, I'm sure most of you have seen this clip. If you didn't see the video in its entirety, I'm pretty sure you have seen clips of this video right here. This video was making its rounds around these YouTube streets probably about 5 or 6 months ago. So I'm sure most of you at the very least have seen clips of it. And we're going to respond to this because this is probably the main video that I've seen that best illustrates how women are vigorously fighting against the idea of mandatory DNA testing. It also illustrates their baseless and emotional arguments. And it also illustrates how much empathy that most women seriously lack. And that's not an insult. That's the damn truth. That is the damn truth. But we're going to get into it today.
Because of a conversation you are not strong enough to have with your girl. I think that y'all want this to be mandated because of a conversation you are not strong enough to have with your girl. One.
Now, let's deal with that first statement. Because truth be told, there's some truth to that statement. There's a lot of truth to that statement. Unfortunately, a lot of you men out there, you're not strong enough to have that conversation with your girl. You're not strong enough to have that conversation with your wife. You're not strong enough to say, hey, just for my own peace of mind, I want to be a father. I want to take care of my child and be everything that a father is supposed to be. But just for my own peace of mind, you know definitively that you are the mother. I want to know definitively that I am the father. A lot of you are not strong enough to bring that up and have that conversation with your girl or your wife because you know how they're going to react. You know how they're going to respond. They're going to respond much like the women in this video are responding to it. Much like most women respond to the idea of mandatory DNA testing. But see, first of all, me, myself, I don't have that damn problem. I really don't give a damn how you take it. I don't give a damn how you take it. Because first of all, I'm of the opinion that if you have a problem with it, you must have something to hide. You must have something to hide. You must be nervous about something. Okay, first of all. Second, the way you deal with that is you deal with that proactively and preemptively. You don't wait until your girlfriend or your wife gets pregnant to bring that up. That's something that you're supposed to bring up in the early stages of getting to know a woman. That is something you're supposed to bring up in the early stages of getting to know her. Within the first couple of months of you getting to know this woman, she should know that in the event that she gets pregnant, you are the man who's going to ask for a paternity test, for a DNA test. She should know that straight out the gate. That way, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line, it's not a surprise. So 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line, if and when she gets pregnant and you bring up a DNA test and suddenly she breaks bad on you and she's acting like she's so surprised and so hurt and so disrespected that you want a DNA test, you immediately know you damn sure do need a DNA test. Because why the hell is this woman acting surprised when I told her this years ago before a baby was even in the picture? That's how you deal with that. There's only one reason a woman has a problem with mandatory DNA testing.
You requesting DNA, first of all, this is a very gendered question, right? There's no way for a woman, well, let me not speak for every woman. For me specifically, there's no way if my man came up to me, I wouldn't feel some type of offense. But fine, if you have the right to know whether it's your child or not, because I know this is my child, right? But to say that it's mandated is where I have a problem. Who is picking up those costs? The U.S. government? The U.S. government should be paying for these mandatory tests for you to know. No, first of all, we have so many issues in this country already.
Now, I want you to pay attention to the fact how she keeps bringing up we have so many issues in this country. And one, she seems to be very reluctant to list those issues. But when she does name a few issues, listen to what she claims to be issues. Listen to what she thinks is more important than mandatory DNA testing.
Place that type of payment on the U.S. government is wrong. No. And first of all, healthcare does not cover so many ailments that are like people are dying from.
I get that. Not even just ailments, just feminine products.
Just feminine products. So for you to make that mandatory, that would have to be a government issue.
Do you know that?
If you want a mandatory test,
which I do,
you pay for it yourself. You pay for it.
I got the money for it.
That's fine. So let's make it clear.
Because you know that a lot of women.
Let me finish my sentence.
All right, go ahead.
Let me finish my sentence. I personally pay taxes, and I care about where my money goes.
So she pays taxes and she cares about where her money goes. I wonder if she has a problem with her tax dollars contributing to the deletion of 1,000 black babies a day by way of Planned Parenthood. I wonder if she has a problem with her tax dollars contributing to the deletion of tens of thousands of babies every damn day in this country by way of Planned Parenthood. I wonder if she has a problem with that. I highly doubt she has a problem with that. As a matter of fact, I am almost 100% sure that this is one of those women who'll tell you my body, my choice, and is of the opinion that she has the right to delete babies. She doesn't have a problem with her tax dollars contributing to that wickedness. And let's be honest here. She's a black woman. Okay. Now, I do not believe she's a foundational black American whatsoever. I'm picking up some strong, it's either some strong island energy or some strong West African energy. And we're going to get into that in a second, too. You're damn right. I'm about to go there. This is a black woman. We all know black women vote Democrat to the tune of 90-something%. To the tune of 90-something%, black women in America are still on the Democratic plantation. Democrats don't have, but I wonder, does she have a problem with her tax dollars going to migrants, to the millions of, I believe it's 8 million migrants that they've allowed in the country, that Joe Biden has allowed in the country in the last 3 years. I wonder, does she have a problem with that? But something that is honestly going to benefit men, something that is for the protection of men, she has a problem with. I wonder why. We're gonna discuss exactly why she has a problem with that in a second.
I'm not here to pay for so-and-so because there's a confusion about who's the father. That's not my business. Handle your personal shit. And for me, I want to fund schools. I want to fund the MTA because the trains are never on time. We got bigger problems.
There it is. There it is. The Metro North, if you're on the East Coast, the train being on time is more important than men knowing definitively whether or not they are actually the fathers of the children that women claim they are the fathers of. The train being on time is more important than a man being deceived into taking care of and raising a child for 18 years to adulthood. 18 years of his life that he'll never be able to get back. 18 years of his resources contributing to the growth and development of another man's child when those resources could have been contributing to his own well-being or even contributing to the well-being of a child that actually belonged to him. The train being on time, let her tell it, is more important than the well-being of men, than the protection of men, than the human rights of men. Because make no mistake, paternity fraud is a human rights issue. Men's reproductive rights, of which we have none. Even in America, men have no reproductive rights. That is a human rights issue. This is a human rights issue, but she is saying that the train being on time is more important.
I have bigger problems. I'm sorry. I'm not paying for no mandatory test. When you're saying mandatory requires everyone to do it. Not everybody can pay for it.
No,
That's you're adding stuff. You're adding stuff. Hey man, let me finish my shit.
Ooh.
When you say mandatory, that includes people that are having children that don't necessarily have the money to pay for this test. A mandated thing is going to be covered by the government.
So that means if you can't
So
afford it.
if you can't afford it, but you're not.
So
But here's my thing. So the U.S. government is going to take care of it. We have too many other issues that are way more pressing than you knowing the fidelity of your relationship and whether that be your child. If you personally...
She can't even articulate the bullshit she's trying to say. Now, at first, I was thinking that this woman would fall under the category of an articulate hoe. She is not an articulate hoe whatsoever. What I realize is this is just simply a bald-headed hoe. And stay tuned, because for those of you who remember the video I did, 14 types in assortment of 304s, my best work today, where I broke down 14 different types of hoes. You remember, I saved the articulate hoe for last. The articulate hoe is the most diabolical hoe of them all. But stay tuned, because there is a part 2 on the way. So far, I've got 2 archetypes. I'm not going to give away one archetype, but I just told you this one, the bald-headed hoe. I'm going to break down the bald-headed hoe in part 2 of an assortment of hoes, as well as other archetypes. Yeah, this is just a bald-headed hoe. A bald-headed tether hoe. And speaking of, I'm picking up some strong tether energy from this entire panel, if you want to be honest. But focusing on the bald-headed hoe here on the left, I'm picking up either some strong Jamaican energy or some strong West African energy is what I'm picking up. And I don't think I'm wrong in my assessment. I really don't. I really don't. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause here, and I want to show you something about Jamaica and West Africa, specifically Nigeria. But it's not just Nigeria, it's West Africa as a whole. Now what you see here, if you look up there in the search bar, you can clearly see I typed in highest cases of paternity fraud in the world. And what comes up? What comes up? Let's read it, shall we? The perception that paternity fraud is high in Nigeria is not unfounded. Reports have been making the rounds that Nigeria has the second highest rate of paternity fraud in the world, second only to Jamaica. So when I say Nigeria and Jamaica are a nation of whores, I'm not lying. I'm not being insulting. I'm telling the damn truth. And I'm picking up either some strong Jamaican energy or some strong West African energy from this bald-headed hoe. Of all the women on the panel, she is the most vocal. Of all the women on the panel, she is the one arguing most vigorously against the concept of mandatory DNA testing. I wonder why. I wonder why. If I belonged to a nation of whores, I would argue against it too. Well, see, they can argue against it all they want. It doesn't matter. They are powerless to stop what is coming. They're powerless to stop what is happening. So they can argue against it all they want. It's going to be made mandatory, at least in certain states, at the very least. Now, this needs to be mandatory DNA testing at birth needs to be made a federal law. This needs to be done on a federal level, because if it's only done state to state, then we know certain states such as New York, such as California, are never going to pass mandatory DNA testing laws, because those states are ran by liberal lunatics. Those states are ran by liberal lunatics who will support the deletion of tens of thousands, even millions of babies, but will not support men having the right to know whether or not they are definitively somebody's father. Because liberal lunatics and their logic is a joke. And I'm really beginning to understand that, really liberals are just wicked people. For the most part, your ideology is wicked. Your political views are wicked and destructive, and are bringing destruction to the very nation that you live in. But because you're so feminine and stubborn in your thinking, you refuse to admit that you're wrong.
Personally want to check for your child, that's you. But to say that it's mandatory across the country, that's crazy. And it's inconsiderate. And it's no.
You're saying that you will pay for it, right? Yeah, so if it costs $5,000, you're gonna pay for a DNA test that costs $5,000? Does it cost $5,000? For every child, it doesn't matter. DNA testing for my parents was $500.
I have a question though. Would you be okay with your wife having you do a lie detective test, whether you cheat on her or not?
Why not?
What if you were doing?
Here comes the deflection. We've got another bald-headed hoe with her deflector shields up. Okay? We're talking about mandatory DNA testing. We're talking about men having the right to know whether or not they are the father of a child. And here comes this other bald-headed hoe interjecting men cheating as a deflection and also as a justification. If you pay attention, she's also inserting this as a justification for paternity fraud. Because what do we know? What do we know about women when it comes to men cheating? We know that women will use a man cheating as justification for anything. I'll give you an example. There's an episode of The View where Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg and I believe that Osborne chick, this was back when she was still on the show. They were sitting up there talking about this incident that happened. This is probably about 2 or 3 years ago, I believe, where this woman cut her boyfriend's Johnson off in the middle of the night while he was asleep and defenseless, and allegedly did it, or she did it because he allegedly cheated. And don't you know, Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg and the Osborne chick and the rest of them heifers, they sat up there and laughed, and literally laughed about a man having his private parts cut off. Literally laughed about a man being mutilated, and cracked a few jokes and justified their laughter and justified this woman assaulting this man in this manner because he allegedly cheated. So this is what women like this bald-headed hoe will do. You'll be having a conversation that has absolutely nothing to do with men cheating. As soon as there's some accountability being thrown women's way, the first thing a bald-headed hoe like this will do is try to interject men cheating into the conversation as a rationalization and a justification for what the fuck women are doing. There is no rationalization, nor is there a justification for paternity fraud and forcing a man into raising a child under the false pretense that that child is his. There is no justification for that.
Something wrong though.
I wouldn't be.
Exactly. So why would the DNA be like mandatory?
God bless you, man. Why we even at this topic?
But this is what I'm saying. This question.
No, because you know what's crazy?
I don't think this
in a hospital, women. In a hospital, women do ask for a DNA test. People do ask on the leg. They'll pull a nurse aside and be like, can you know, after the
and that's fine. And the question is about it being mandated. So understand what that means.
You know why the question on this question? I think for sure that the person that was writing this was talking about upon, like they're talking about like when you're requesting it, like it should be mandatory where, like, let's say a dad is like acting like this isn't his child. You should be able to say, oh, had this DNA test, and they can't deny it. They can't deny it.
If a dad is acting like that's not their child, and a woman
they can say no to a paternity test.
No, he cannot. If a court says you gotta take a mandatory test, you have to take it.
But if you are mandating it across the
So now, do you see how the women are in favor of a DNA test under those circumstances? So under the circumstances that a man is denying paternity and doesn't want anything to do with the child, they are perfectly fine with that man being mandated to take a paternity test so that he can be forced to assume responsibility of the child should the DNA test reveal that that is indeed his child. They're okay with mandatory DNA testing under those circumstances, but they are not okay with mandatory DNA testing under the circumstances that men across the country, all men across the country, will be taking DNA tests to establish paternity, to establish whether or not children belong to them. Make it make sense. Make it make sense, man.
Understand the effects of what that's gonna be.
Versus a court order.
And are completely different things. So when y'all wildin' talking about for when you're wildin' saying that it should be mandated for the whole country, when there are so many other issues that we have to attend to because of your personal issues with your girl.
It's both of us. It's me and you. What you mean? Over here doing stuff. I don't know if this is.
So you speak to her. That's a personal problem.
I gotta take your word for it.
You know what I'm saying? That's a personal problem, not a country one.
Is that a personal problem?
It is a personal problem. You don't know if that's your child. That's personal. The country don't got to deal with that shit.
She don't know either.
Mandatory DNA testing or paternity fraud is not a personal problem. Okay? Paternity fraud is a societal issue. There's been study after study after study after study on paternity fraud. And it has been deduced that approximately 30% of men out here taking care of children are indeed not the father of the children that they're taking care of. 30%. There was this one study where they DNA tested 300,000 children. And just barely over 100,000 of the fathers, or 100,000 of the men that they tested were not the fathers. When 300,000 paternity tests are taken, when 300,000 paternity tests are taken, and a little over 100,000 of those men are proven not to be the father, this is not an individual issue. This is not a personal issue. These aren't isolated incidents. This is a societal issue. Because think about that. 30%. This means if you walk into a school and you open up the classroom door to a class of 60 students, that means 20 of those kids in that class have been lied to about who their father is. If you go next door to the next classroom over, you open that door and there's 60 kids in that class. 20 of those children have been lied to about who the fuck their father is. You go down the hall, around the fucking corner, open up another classroom, 60 kids in that classroom, 20 of those children have been lied to about who the fuck their father is. This is not a personal problem on an individual level. This is a societal issue. If you put 60 Americans in any room on any given day, the statistics bear out that 20 of those Americans have been lied to about who their father is. 30% of the American population has been lied to about who their father is. 1 out of 3 mothers are committing paternity fraud. That's not a personal problem. That is a societal issue. That is a human rights issue. And America, as far as the government, is guilty of human rights violations where men and a man's right to know whether or not he is the father of a child is concerned. America as a government is guilty of violating the human rights of men as far as DNA testing and knowing whether or not we are the father of a child. They are guilty of human rights violations as far as men not having any reproductive rights in this country. They are guilty of a human rights violation as far as men barely having any rights to their goddamn children when the children are born. It's not a personal problem. It's a societal issue. It is a societal issue.
That's a personal problem. Either way, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, nobody knows. Like, I don't trust her. I don't trust the baby. Like,
you hear what I'm saying, right? The argument is that it's personal.
I think it should only be mandated if it's not, if you're not in marriage. Yeah, if you're in marriage,
right? Absolutely not.
I think that's worse. Women in this situation about the topic in which we're talking about, pregnancies and DNA tests, in most cases than not, is going to be you have doubts about who the women cheating, and that's why the baby may not be yours. The direct topic question was from a man asking he doesn't want to raise another man's child. So in that case, who would have cheated? The woman. So yeah, in those situations, it's gonna always be about a woman. You're trying to get a DNA test. If it's a man outside the relationship, he gonna bring the evidence of the cheating. He gonna bring the child. And that's like the part where that's where it hurts the most. Like that's the time where it should be mandatory. If I'm in a if you're
marriage,
and that's when it happens.
Now notice how this other bald-headed hoe here clutched her pearls when he said, in marriage, that's when paternity fraud matters the most. That's when DNA testing matters the most, which is absolutely true. Statistics also bear out that the overwhelming vast majority of paternity fraud actually takes place in marriage. And the fucked up part about paternity fraud in marriage is, as the law stands present day, even if your wife admits to you that she cheated on you and got pregnant by another guy while you were married, the way the law is set up, the way family court law is set up, you are presumed to be the father simply because you are her husband. And you're still on the hook. If she wants to, she can go ahead and get child support out of you and anything else out of you for that child that you know is not yours, that she knows is not yours, that the court knows is not yours. That judge will look you square in the eye and tell you you were married to her. And the way family court law is set up, you being her husband at the time of conception, you are legally presumed the father. So somebody's got to take care of the child, and it's going to be you. So you're goddamn right. Mandatory DNA testing actually matters more It's more important for married men for the fact that married men are actually the greatest victims of paternity fraud.
First of all, it's not when it's in that situation. More times than not, when it's like a relationship, is usually the woman who's committed infidelity because the guy is assuming if you're in a relationship, if you're married and you're in a relationship, the man is assuming. And most times when you're on Maury, you're watching these cases or you hear about these stories. You're assuming that.
I almost died because Shabazz said women are usually the one that's unfaithful. He sounds like he's guilty of something because a lot of time in a lot of culture, the man is normally the one that's out there cheating. And even guys that are religious, even people that are, I know people personally that are, that go to church every Sunday, but they still cheating on their wives. So
Now, that is a lie. That is an absolute lie, and I'm going to break that down. But first, let me say that as far as her anecdotal experience as an individual, just taking one look at her, I would believe her if she said that she has been cheated on repeatedly. I absolutely believe you. I absolutely believe you, you bald-headed heifer. I actually absolutely believe you have been cheated on. Because look at you. Wouldn't you cheat on you? Bitch, you would cheat on you if you got the chance. You would cheat on you. The fuck? I'm sorry. If I can't pull your hair when I'm hitting it from the back, I'm cheating on you. I'm going to cheat on you. Bald-headed heifer. Now, let's clear this up once and for all. This idea that men cheat more than women. Or the question, who do you think cheats more, men or women? And people acting stupid when it comes to answering the question. What do we say all the time? Women control access to sex, men control access to relationships. So, women being the ones who control access to sex, women being the gatekeepers of sex, women who have far more access to sex than men, women who can get sex far easier than men, who the fuck do you think cheats more? Who do you think cheats more? This question, who cheats more, men or women, I'm sorry, at some point we've got to say it is a stupid question. Look, if a man goes out Friday night, whether he goes out to the bar, he goes out to the club, and he goes out with the intention of bagging some chick and bringing her back to the crib and getting some ass that night. He goes out with every intention on getting laid Friday night. He might. I mean, it might happen. Meets the right chick, right place, right time, plays his cards right, says the right things. It might happen. The possibility is there. Now, on the flip side, if a woman goes out Friday night, whether she goes out to the club or whether she goes out to the bar, and she goes out with the intention that she is going to get some Johnson tonight. She goes out with the intention on getting laid Friday night. Guess what's going to happen? She's going to be face down, ass up later on that night with some guy that she met at the club or at the bar doing his best to dig her guts out. It's going to happen. It's going to happen because women are the gatekeepers of sex. Women have far greater access to sex. It is far easier for a woman to get sex from a man than it is for a man to get sex from a woman. Not to mention the fact that women are offered sex damn near on a daily basis. Every time a man holds the door open for you, he's offering you some sex. Every time a man gives you a compliment, he's offering you sex. Every time a man says hi, a little too flirtatious, he's offering you some sex. You think we just being nice? No, we are offering you some dick. I'm not just being nice to you for no fucking reason. This is a man's subtle way of letting you know he'd like to fuck you. We are not nice for no reason, ladies, okay? We are not nice for no reason. No man is nice for no reason. Okay? So that is a stupid question and a stupid argument. And this bald-headed heifer, like so many other women, she's sitting here trying to tell this lie over and over and over, because this seems to be just about all women like her have. It seems to be the only thing they have to hang their hat on. The idea that men cheat. So because men cheat, we're justified in any bit of foolishness that we choose to engage in. It's nothing but deflection and bullshit.
I don't know what he's talking about.
The person that you're with is automatically that's your child. And that's why a man asks this question. It was directly gender related. A man is asking that question. If you're outside, that's another big thing, because everyone's right to do. They were single, whatever. But when you're with somebody, the person that having questions is about if they're the father of that child. They go through the rest of this child's life taking care of it. And if that was me, like, yeah, after 18 years, it's not gonna turn your back on the child. But if I had known from day one, I'm out.
Hold up, pause. First of all, women take care of.
Now, first off, before this, before bald-headed hoe number one goes into her diatribe of bullshit, let's correct what this guy just said. Ladies, there are a whole lot of men, a whole heap of men, myself included, who, if I were deceived into taking care of a child under the pretense that that child was mine, biologically, and then I were to find out 5 years, 10 years, 16 years, hell, 25 years down the road that child's not mine, guess what? Fuck you and that goddamn kid. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. You would see a whole different side of me. Whatever love I had for the child or for you would be turned off like somebody hit a light switch. Okay? And y'all need to understand that there's a whole lot of men like that. There's a whole lot of men like that who are able to just turn it off. Completely turn it off. So what he just said, where he said, if you take care of a child for 18 years and then you find out, of course, I'm not just going to leave now because it's been 18 years. Man, fuck that. Fuck that. I would tell that kid, look, you need to have a conversation with your mama and figure out who your daddy is. Don't blame me. Talk to that bitch. All right? Now, if I see you around, I see you around, homie. Deuces. I'm out. I'm out. Don't call me for nothing. Don't ask me for shit.
Children that aren't there all the fucking time, and don't make a big ass deal about it. No, pause. No.
What you saying? You're saying that.
I am saying that.
But you have a choice. You know that. You know that's not your kid.
Pause. What I'm making a declaration between is the fact that this is.
Now, here comes the gaslighting and baseless argument, because there really is no argument against mandatory DNA testing. What you are listening to is bitch babble. That's all this is bitch babble. It's, when you gotta throw any and everything up against the wall in hopes that something sticks. You know what I'm saying? This is a bunch of white noise that's coming out of this woman's mouth. Okay? There is not a single situation in which a woman is taking care of a child under the false pretense that that child belongs to her. There is not a single woman on planet Earth that has ever been deceived into believing that she was the mother of a child that was not hers. Okay? So her trying to draw this comparison is absolutely, utterly ridiculous because there is no fucking comparison.
Personal problem that you have with your girl, and you're making a country responsibility when we have other.
Now, again, we have already established that this is not a personal issue. This is a societal issue.
If it's not mine, I'm walking away. That's it. That's it. Nothing else to talk about. If you're just talking about what I'm gonna do, I don't know what they gonna do, but I'm out.
I don't think there's any issue with a man taking care of another man's child. Women do it all the time, whether you know or not. He might bring another child and say, "Oh, I had this out of our wedlock. You know, what are we gonna do?"
Now, on a side note, fellas, you know what they say about women who wear hoop earrings. The bigger the hoops, the bigger the hoe.
He's taking your money and paying child support to another family. You had no idea. So when we're just like jumping like, oh, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. Hold on. It's already being done.
You could have been doing so many other things with your life. You could have been figuring your life out. I don't know, feeding pigeons. I don't know, doing anything. But you raising a kid that is not yours. I mean, if you had the option to know that was your kid and you wanted to raise that kid, that's perfectly fine. A lot of people do that. But when you don't know, you're doing it out of the obligation or the mindset that this is my child. I'm gonna raise him or her. I'm gonna raise them up. I love them. This is my DNA. This is my blood. And then come to find out that's not your kid.
There's a clear like.
Now, what he's talking about right there is something that older men should already completely understand. But if you're a younger man and you're listening, what he's talking about is man's greatest resource. A man's greatest resource is not his money. A man's greatest resource is his time. His time is the one thing that he can't get back. If you invest a few $100s into a particular stock and that stock goes up, say you invest a few $100s and the stock goes up and that few $100s is now a few $1,000s if you were to cash out right now. But you say, you know what? I'm going to sit on this overnight. I'm going to see if the stock goes up a little more. See if maybe I can get a few more dollars out of this thing. So you sleep on it overnight. First thing in the morning, you take a look. And the stock then went back down because so many people done cashed out. So now what would have been a few $1,000s of profit is now only a couple $100s of profit. Well, you lost a few $1,000s. However, you have the opportunity to reinvest that money that you have and make that money back. However, if you invest 18 years, or even 5 years, or 2 years, 3 years into a child that does not belong to you, those are years that you will never be able to get back. You could have been actually starting a family with another woman, as opposed to allowing this woman to deceive you into supporting this child that did not belong to you. Only for you to find out the child don't belong to you. Now you got to go back to ground zero and start over from scratch. When you could have moved on with your life a couple of years ago. Who knows? You might have met another woman and had a child with that woman. You see what I'm saying? Time is a man's greatest resource. You cannot allow these women to waste your time. by pinning babies on you that do not fucking belong to you.
Disrespect going on, right? If I have and double standard. Yes, I understand. It's fucked up if somebody has a child for you and it's not for you and expecting you to raise it. I get that. But what I'm saying is that women, first of all, have to do that all the time. But first of all,
now, even though we all know that that is a fucking lie, let's just touch on it because she keeps fucking saying it. That is an absolute lie. There is never a situation in which a woman is taking care of a child that she has been deceived into taking care of. Never. Never, ever, ever. I, as a man, cannot go and cheat on my girl with some other chick, get her pregnant, and then bring the baby back home to my girl and tell my girl, it's your baby. Look. The baby has your eyes. Like, get the fuck out of here. Okay? There is never this idea, that she's trying to push here that, we do it too. No, you don't. No, you don't. Even if, under any circumstances, women have a choice. Women always have a choice. Say some guy goes and like I said before, say a guy goes, he cheats on his girl, he cheats on his wife, he gets some chick pregnant. Now he's got to come clean to his girl or his wife and let her know, hey, I got this girl pregnant. We took a DNA test, the baby is mine. I'm sorry, I fucked up. Now she has a choice. She can either leave or she can stay and assume some sort of motherly role to that child. If she chooses to, she has a choice. Or of course, the normal situation, a chick meets a guy that's already got kids, they get into a relationship, and because they're in a relationship, she assumes a motherly role to the children or child that he's already had. Again, choice. Women have a choice in the matter. And any logical, rational thinking human being clearly understands that and would never try to make this argument that she's trying to make. But you see, and I'm going to say something that's going to offend some women. I really don't give a damn. The more I watch panel discussions like this, we have men and women on the panel, the more the women talk, the more I understand why men of old would close the doors to women when it was time to discuss matters of importance. I'm going to say it again. When I watch discussions like this, and it's a panel of men and women, the more the women talk, the more I understand why men of old would close the doors to women when it was time to discuss matters of importance. Because whenever you're involved in the conversation, you're delusional, you're emotional, you're deceitful, you're dishonest. You create these circular conversations to the point which nothing can ever get solved. No conclusion can ever be met when you are involved in the conversation. You will plunge a country into chaos and destruction before you admit that you're wrong about something. You will plunge a country into chaos and destruction rather than to simply take accountability for your own bullshit. And this is why the men of old would close the doors to women when it was time to discuss matters of importance. You don't belong in the room when it's time to discuss something important. You do not.
Women are in these circumstances. Can I finish my damn sentence?
Go ahead.
women are in the circumstance where they need to take care of a child that isn't theirs all the time. And I understand that, again, that it ends up being a choice, right? Because you're aware. So that's what I said, Shabazz. So
if she understands that it's a choice, why even bring it up? Because like I said, this bald-headed hoe is simply throwing a whole bunch of shit on the wall, hoping something sticks. She's gaslighting her ass off. She's deflecting her ass off. This is bitch babble. She's just saying a whole bunch of nothing.
But you're not making it.
I am making a point. If you let me finish, I would finish it. So stop interrupting me.
Because you're not saying nothing.
Because you keep interrupting me.
Finish it. So we can say the same thing we've been saying. You're not giving the person a choice. Me and Akron talking about it's a choice.
I just said that.
Everybody's sitting there looking at you the same way.
No, we're trying to listen to her. You trying to claim that. First of all, I understand it's a choice, but we don't make a choice that we end up doing a personal problem for the government to handle.
You're going about the government again.
Just because.
Nobody give a damn about the government.
But we're talking about a mandatory decision. If you got to do a mandatory thing, if you got to make a mandatory decision, someone else has to pay for it. What I'm saying is that women have to face this all the time. By choice or not, it doesn't matter. You don't need, the government doesn't need to take up for you because you didn't know about something. That's just what it is. The government doesn't need to take
That's a personal thing. Like, so what do you mean? There's mad petty shit that government pay for. That your taxes, that you work for, that go to.
Are you done now? Are you done? Are you done?
Shabazz, say what you gotta say.
Thank you. That whole situation, you didn't say not a damn thing.
She damn sure didn't. Now, the government is spending hundreds of millions of dollars, or giving hundreds of millions of dollars to the Ukraine. The government is giving hundreds of millions of dollars to Israel every year. The government is spending hundreds of millions of tax dollars on these 8 million immigrants that this idiot Joe Biden has allowed into this country in the last 3.5 years. Millions upon millions upon millions of dollars going any and everywhere. Not to mention the millions and millions of dollars that is wasted on bald-headed hoes just like these two heifers sitting up here on this panel saying a whole bunch of nothing. In the form of Section 8, in the form of WIC, in the form of food stamps. All these able-bodied 20-something and 30-something-year-old professional baby mamas who could get out here and get a goddamn job and work like the rest of us, sitting on their fat, lazy fucking asses, draining tax dollars, our tax dollars, so that they can be supported. Half of these hoes would be fucking homeless if it wasn't for Section 8 and food stamps and WIC and whatever else they're fucking draining from the government. But see, bald-headed hoes don't have a problem with millions upon millions of taxpayers' dollars contributing to these lazy fucking whores sitting on their asses all day, every day, so they could pop out more bastard fucking kids. They don't have a problem with that, but they have a problem with men knowing definitively whether or not they are somebody's father. They don't have a problem with that, but they have a problem with mandatory DNA testing. I wonder why. What y'all got to understand is paternity fraud is not a small thing. It is not a small thing. 30%. 30%. And I suspect if DNA testing at birth were made mandatory, we would see that number go up. I suspect we would see that number go up. Like, okay, say mandatory DNA testing on a federal level was made law today, right? Today. Just think about all the women who are already pregnant right now. who got pregnant before that law was passed. So on the day of birth, that man that they're accusing of being the father is going to have to take a DNA test before he can put his name on the birth certificate. How many women are going to have their spots blown up? I suspect the number is actually higher than 30%. I suspect it's closer to 40. Probably somewhere between 35 and 40. So this is a serious issue. And the fact that these women or any women would argue against it should seriously wake men up. It should seriously wake you up and make you start asking some goddamn questions.
Balls around choice. If a woman want to stick around for the kid,
because of choice, the government should be included.
I let you in. Let me finish. After you made that choice, you know that this child did not come from your womb. You're sitting there, or you take a man that has kids. You make that choice. All I'm saying, we're all playing fields equal. If I know this is not my child, then let me get the choice. Don't allow somebody to go through the whole life of the children being. But
you can get a DNA test though, but don't make it mandatory for the whole country. Shabazz can do whatever he want with whoever he want, as many.
So they don't want it to be mandatory for the entire country because they know what's going to happen. These women know that paternity fraud has been something that women have been doing since the dawn of man. Something women have been getting away with since the dawn of man. And they have grown comfortable in getting away with it. And every generation has passed the torch, if you will, on to the next generation of women. And every generation of women has had the option of doing this. Sleeping with the man that they want, getting pregnant by the man that they're attracted to or aroused by, and then pinning that man's baby on the good guy, on the provider, on the man who they think will be a good father. Every generation of women since the dawn of man has been doing this. And these heifers are pissed that the jig is up. They are pissed that DNA testing exists. And even more pissed that men have now gotten the bright idea that, hey, we can use this DNA testing to protect ourselves from these hoes. We can use this DNA testing to establish paternity at birth so these hoes can't commit paternity fraud against us anymore and have us out here looking like suckers and fools taking care of another man's child, changing the diapers of another man's baby, wiping snot from the nose of another man's baby, putting my effort, my time, my wisdom, my resources into another man's legacy. Got me out here looking like a fucking idiot, like a fucking fool. No, we can nip all that in the bud now. We can take care of this mandatory DNA testing at birth. And these hoes is mad.
Times as he want. I really don't care. You have a right to know if this is your child. My issue with him specifically is that you are making it a bigger deal than it needs to be. If you personally are not sure about this child being yours, handle that on your personal level. Don't give the government or the country that responsibility to handle your shit.
Again, the bigger the hoops, the bigger the hoe. And, as we've already discussed, she said, you're making this a bigger issue than it needs to be. No, this is a societal issue that is plaguing this country. 30% of the 30% of the men who believe they are fathers are not. 30% of these children have been lied to about who their fathers are. I use the example of a classroom of 60 children. 20 of those children have been lied to about who their father is. This is a major issue. It's not a personal issue. It's a societal issue.
You was man enough to stick it in whoever. Be man enough about asking about the results.
I definitely think Shabazz would be the kind of guy who cheats and then come back and ask for a DNA test, because that's how it always works out. In my own personal experience, I was being cheated on and I was being accused of doing something, but you know, God works in mysterious ways. So things ended up revealing themselves and I'm like, oh, okay, I thought I was the one cheating. You were accusing me, but here you are. It's right there. How do you explain yourself? I have a question. What about the men who don't...
Now, I let her talk so you could hear her voice and her accent and her mannerisms, coupled with her bald head and her elf ears, so you could really get a good look at her. Are any of you surprised that that bitch got cheated on? Are any of you surprised that she is obsessed with men cheating? So much so that she is accusing other men of being cheaters who she has never been in a relationship with. She's not in a relationship with that guy. She probably barely even knows that guy, but is throwing the accusation out there that he must be a cheater. Why? Because he wants a mandatory DNA test? Because he wants to know definitively whether he's somebody's father? That must mean he's cheating? Again, this is bitch babble. Again, this is more deflection. This is more baseless arguments. This is more emotion-based arguments.
Take care of their kids. That don't pay child support. Doesn't the woman still have to take care of them?
That's the woman's fault. If
No, but the thing is, if it's a choice, they don't have a choice. If it's their kids and their husband don't want to pay child support, the woman still have to take care of the kids, though.
But that's you can go to court for that, though.
No, what am I saying? No, what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, one of my friends is going through that right now. Going to court doesn't still don't do anything because the guy can't pay child support and she has to take care of the kids. Is that a choice?
But that's her decision to have a baby with somebody that don't got no money or no job or no, that ain't shit.
Right the way you put that,
like, don't lay in bed with a man that don't got shit done.
But what if he had a job and then he loses it? But he's
so. But that's a different situation, though. But that's not even what we talking about right now, though. Like
he's going out of his way not to pay.
And he had a job, and obviously she sees something in him that makes her not want to be with him. So
that's a different point.
If it was me, I would want a DNA test.
So under any circumstances, you'd want a DNA test, even if you were married or in a relationship with this woman.
So then why you want it to be mandatory?
Why not?
I don't understand that at all.
Now, see, we're going to end this right here because this is about where the conversation kind of starts deteriorating and it gets kind of, all over the place. But again, these men are very foolish for suggesting that a man doesn't need a paternity test, or a DNA test if he's married. Like I said before, and you can look it up yourself, married men are the greatest victims of paternity fraud. And like I said, they end up becoming the greatest victims of paternity fraud, not only based on the numbers, the fact that more paternity fraud takes place in marriage than it does in relationships, but also because the way state laws or family court law is set up, a married man is by law presumed to be the father. So even if you have a DNA test and you have the physical proof that you could show the judge that you are not the father, 99 times out of 100, the judge is still going to slap the responsibility of taking care of that child in your lap. So married men need mandatory DNA testing too. And as a matter of fact, they need it more than anybody else. Okay. But that sounds like some blue-pilled simp shit coming out of these dudes' mouths, man. But yeah, we ain't done yet. We ain't done yet. We are not done yet. We're going to keep it moving. We're going to keep it moving. Now, the same way we have enemies of mandatory DNA testing, we also have some allies. And we as men, we would be pretty foolish not to make allies out of women who desire to be allies of men in our fight for mandatory DNA testing. And there is a organization called Women Against Paternity Fraud who have joined the fight in trying to get mandatory DNA testing passed. And, you know, like I said, this needs to be on a federal level. It needs to be on a federal level. This is not something that can be left up to the states. Absolutely not. This absolutely cannot be left up to the states. But I came across this video here, and I found it to be very interesting. And I wasn't surprised that most of these women have stories that they're sharing about their loved ones, whether it's their brother or father or husband. Because what you come to find more often than not is women who actually do empathize with certain issues that face men. They usually empathize with those issues because they have a son who went through it, a father who went through it, or a brother who went through it. What I typically find is that women who do not have a male loved one who went through something that's pretty specific to men, more often than not, they don't give a damn about the issue. And that's something, ladies, that absolutely needs to change.
Paternity fraud is a worldwide epidemic. You can't legislate morality, but our laws and policies should always seek the truth.
They want the money from whoever they can get it from.
He would never do anything to hurt anyone ever.
I refuse to continue to pay for somebody else's child.
Paternity fraud creates devastation within families, and yet it is an issue that is rarely talked about or discussed.
Paternity fraud is a worldwide epidemic. It's not just fraud to the father. It's fraud to the child. It's fraud to the child's family. It's fraud to the taxpayer. It's fraud to the government.
Back in 2000, I found out a very special dear child I thought was my daughter. I found out after DNA testing that she was not my child, and that in fact I had been deceived about who her actual biological father was. I went to court expecting that this would be something that would be resolved just based on the truth, because I could prove I hadn't lied, and we could prove that her mom either lied or made a mistake. The court didn't want to hear it. So after appealing it through all of the Court of Appeals, and I took it to the U.S. Supreme Court, proving that there's over 1 million men and boys like me in that situation.
Paternity fraud can occur in many ways. Default judgments, in-hospital paternity acknowledgments, marital presumption of paternity, and lack of legal representation.
My children had talked to me and asked if we could find out where we're from, because we've always been curious. My oldest daughters came back, and I wasn't on hers, and she wasn't on mine. So we decided to pursue further DNA that was state sanctioned through Tennessee. It cost us around $200 to get that done. We got the results back in within 4 or 5 days. The results came back as a 0% of me being the father.
Even if a DNA test proves that a man is not the biological father of a child, he could still be mandated to pay child support for a child he did not father at the expense of his own biological children.
My experience with paternity fraud is being proclaimed to be a father with a default judgment. How it affects my biological children is now they're in the belief that maybe they have another sibling out there. Financially, it affects my children because I'm not capable of keeping up with the bills and certain necessities that my own children need. When it comes down to me working a 40-hour work week, and at the end of the week, I'm being stripped from everything that I work for.
Now, first of all, to touch on what she said at the very beginning of the video, when she said that paternity fraud is a worldwide epidemic, a worldwide problem. And that is absolutely correct. Paternity fraud is not a race-specific issue. It does not affect one race or the other. Paternity fraud is not specific to any particular people of a certain economic bracket, a certain tax bracket. Paternity fraud is an issue that affects all men of all races, of all incomes, of all tax brackets, of all social statuses. Paternity fraud is an issue that all men of all races, of all incomes can get behind and fight for. And there is absolutely no reason for any men to create division on as far as men unifying to fight for mandatory DNA testing. Now, second thing, this gentleman here, could you imagine that? Could you imagine your check being garnished to pay child support for a child that does not belong to you, to pay child support for a child that the state knows does not belong to you? And because your check is being garnished to pay child support for a child that doesn't belong to you, you are incapable of providing certain necessities for your actual children. Could you imagine that? Meanwhile, this chick is spending your money on God knows what. And you know something else? She's probably still sleeping with the actual father of that child. And that man who is the actual father of the child barely, if at all, ever has to come out of pocket to take care of that child. But your check is being garnished. This is state-sanctioned extortion. This is a human rights violation. This is a human rights issue. And this is America that this is happening in. I need y'all to understand the severity of this. This should be a serious eye-opener.
Not only does paternity fraud affect men, but women can be paternity fraud victims too.
The wife of the guy, the mother of the guy, the fiance, the girlfriend, his sister, his grandmother, his aunt. All of these are people who are often affected because when he can't pay the child support, he goes to jail, and they're often the people who are trying to come up with the money to get him out.
Paternity fraud has impacted me personally, emotionally. It's been, it's been extremely emotional. My husband is a sweet, sweet man. He would never do anything to hurt anyone ever. To watch him go through this and to see how it's affected him has just been really, really hard. And to see him being taken advantage of has been really, really hard. He's very trusting. He's a very honest person. She swore to him that the baby was his, and he believed her.
This is an issue that impacts men, women, and children throughout the world and leaves its victims in financial, legal, and emotional distress.
This entire experience was emotionally devastating to us. The total for just the attorney is nearly $40,000 and does not include the therapy, which I anticipate will be about $5,000 per year, if not more.
I know that my husband has suffered a lot of depression over it. It's just that idea that I'm not really his dad and at some point he's not going to want me kind of a thing. Not only are they taking somebody's money, but they're involving children. I don't know how it can get any worse than that.
This is not an issue that is only limited to one segment of the population. In all of the years that I worked with states reforming legislation, so many of our opponents try to say this is an issue that only affects low-income minorities. But there are people who are from all ethnic backgrounds, political, social status, even religious. I've even met 5 pastors who are paternity fraud victims. Our various state bodies have not been willing to measure how many people are affected by it because it would actually point out the need to do more DNA testing.
Now, this man here, if you don't know who he is, his name is Carnell Smith. His name is Carnell Smith. He actually found himself to be the victim of paternity fraud and had to fight to get new legislation and new laws passed so that he could go back to court and fight his case again. After he got new legislation and new laws passed, he was able to go back to court, fight his case, and win this time with the new legislation and new laws that he helped to get passed, some of which he actually helped to write. So his name is Carnell Smith. You can find him on YouTube. I believe he went on Dr. Tiason Johnson's show with Dennis Sperlin. I'm not sure if he also went on Dennis Sperlin's show, but you can definitely find him on YouTube. His name is Carnell Smith. Real smart guy. Real smart guy.
Falsely accused men who fall behind on their child support payments can have their driver's and business license suspended, their taxes intercepted, and can even be jailed for the crime of not fathering a child.
As of right now, for what I owe $31,000 and counting. License is already being suspended almost to this point. I've been a supervisor in the oil fields and all that, and as soon as they strip your license, they automatically demote you, take away your truck, take away everything that you've worked hard for.
It is often reported that paternity fraud occurs when a mother does not truthfully disclose the identity of the biological father. However, this is not always the case.
Well, I am a victim of paternity fraud myself. I was legally separated from my ex-husband and became involved with my daughter's biological father. We had a daughter together, and for 2 years he had a relationship with my daughter, paid child support, we had a relationship, and then after the second year he decided, I'm going to use the presumption of marriage law. He took my ex-husband to court to say he's now the legal father, I'm not, I'm out of the loop. We fought for about 11 years.
She was not going to perpetuate a lie to her child, and because of that, now her child is actually fatherless. According to the state of California, her child has no father because she wouldn't pin the wrong man.
Now remember we discussed the family court laws as far as married men needing mandatory DNA testing more than anybody. You heard the lady's story. She was legally separated from her husband. They weren't yet divorced, but they were legally separated, right? She hooked up with another guy, got pregnant by him, had a baby for him. He was taking care of the baby for 2 years, and then 2 years after the fact, I guess he said, you know what, this is too much. And he tried to find a loophole. What was the loophole? The presumption of marriage. When a man is married to a woman, family court law is going to presume he is the father. So this fucking deadbeat bastard tried to use that law to get her ex-husband to foot the bill for his kid. And they were actually in court going back and forth over it. The courts were actually willing to hear the case. I mean, the insanity. The insanity. But this is why men need mandatory DNA testing so that they can protect themselves, man. This is necessary. Totally necessary.
Across the nation, military men are highly vulnerable to paternity fraud. In many cases, this is to take advantage of their income and military benefits.
The military benefits that my husband had definitely were a reason why she chose my husband to be the father. That was told to us by her ex-friend that told my husband. He was in the Marines for 6 or 8 years prior, and then he was in the Army. So he had just gotten out of the Marines, and then he had met her and then joined the Army about a year after that. I do believe that him being in the military did make it very easy for her to commit paternity fraud. Because
now, in certain circles, this is already known. Military men are heavily targeted by predatory women because the financial incentive is there. You know, the benefits that they receive from the military. I mean, there's there's very few jobs that have better benefits than the fucking military. All right. And everybody knows it. So a lot of these women, they will seek out military men. And it really doesn't matter. Either way they win, whether it's, they actually do have a child, whether the child is actually biologically yours or it's not yours and they simply pin some other guy's kid on you, doesn't really matter. They still win. If you are not smart enough to go get a paternity test and establish paternity straight out the gate, they win. But yeah, this is common knowledge in red pill circles. This is common knowledge that military men are some of the biggest targets of these predatory women. If you didn't know, now you know.
Was away, and when she became pregnant, she didn't tell him. He had just gotten home and had been home for a month, and then she told him she was pregnant.
Paternity fraud is an international issue, and Women Against Paternity Fraud has members all across the globe.
Well, I'm from Sydney, Australia. My background, I guess, is that I married a man who had been married before for 20 years and had 2 children to his former wife. About 2.5 years into our family court case, his ex began talking about some deep, dark secret involving his daughter, which would cause her not to want to be with her father anymore and not to want to live with us anymore. But certain things came out of the woodwork. Talk about how his daughter was markedly different from his son. Finally, I said to my husband, do you think that this deep, dark secret might be about biology? At the stage that his daughter had been conceived, he wasn't sleeping with his wife. He was extremely surprised to find that she was pregnant, but he just assumed that the child was his. It never occurred to him that she was sleeping with anybody else. We decided to take a paternity test. The first paternity test came back as 100% negative. That is absolutely no possibility of his daughter being his biological child.
Very few paternity fraud victims find justice in our court systems, but are there really any winners in paternity fraud cases?
So what you're seeing here is, pretty much a reoccurring theme. Like I said, typically speaking, when a woman actually does empathize and support men in a particular issue that is, gender specific to men, it's typically or usually because she has a loved one who went through it, whether it was her father, her son, her brother, husband, uncle, somebody, some man in her life that she actually loves. When their loved ones go through it, then suddenly they care. But usually under any other circumstances, women don't seem to give a damn about the gender-specific issues that face men. They really don't. And again, ladies, that is really something about you that drastically needs to change. Because we as men, we are conditioned and socialized from childhood to care about the issues that you as women face. We are socialized and conditioned to care about DV. We are socialized and conditioned to care about grape. So much so that if a man goes to prison for grape, there's no telling what's going to be done to him in there. And that's among thieves and criminals, men who aren't supposed to have morals, men who aren't supposed to have values, men who are supposed to be savages and animals. Even amongst those men, a man who is guilty of DV against women or graping a woman, he cannot walk safely through a prison amongst criminals and thieves. because men from birth are conditioned and socialized to care about the things that women face. But on the flip side, you are not conditioned and socialized or even taught to give a damn. It's not even suggested to you that you should give a damn about what men go through. And most of you don't. You don't give a flying fuck. You don't give a flying fuck, but things are changing, ladies. Things are changing. House Bill 2689 in the state of Tennessee is changing the ball game. Oh, it is changing the ball game. Paternity fraud has been criminalized in the state of Tennessee. Your trifling ass can go to jail for lying about who the father of your child is in the state of Tennessee. And from what I understand, there are other states who are following suit behind Tennessee. But it's not happening fast enough because we as men are not pushing hard enough for mandatory DNA testing. Seems like we as men are content to sit back and allow a few brave souls to move the needle, and that is not enough. That is not enough. Men have to stand up loudly as a collective and speak with a unified voice where mandatory DNA testing is concerned, and we need to get this passed on a federal level. On a federal level. There is absolutely no reason why men should be getting screwed over like this in 2024. But we are going to talk about why men are getting screwed over like this in 2024. But let's discuss House Bill 2689 in the state of Tennessee, shall we? Because it's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing, beautiful thing. Oh, man. Beautiful. I just want you to know the jig is up. Yeah, man. House Bill 2689 in the state of Tennessee. Paternity fraud is now a crime. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. Oh, man. I know it's about to be some shit popping off in Memphis. Man, all them raggedy hoes in Memphis, I know it's about to be some shit popping off in Memphis. God damn, all them wig wearing, weave wearing, black uptown wearing raggedy hoes in Memphis. God damn. It's about to go down in Memphis, nigga. Do you hear me? It's about to go down, bro.
You're in Tennessee, guess what? House Bill 2689 is getting ready to pass. That is requiring paternity tests before you sign the birth certificate. Because, you know, when people do paternity tests, 1/3 of the time, they end up not being the father. And if they start testing everybody, that number can only go up, not down. It's going to be dramatic. And right now, they're starting to also add in things like, you know, maternity fraud is a crime, a punishable crime. So guys used to go to jail for not paying child support on a child that wasn't theirs because the state wants to get their money, because if there is no father to pay for the child support, somebody has to pay for it. So they push it onto the nearest person that could be a father figure. And they're actually starting to jail time the ladies for maternity fraud because it is such a rampant crime.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you the man who is responsible for House Bill 2689 that is criminalizing paternity fraud. This man right here in the suit. Can we get a slow clap? Can we get a slow clap? Can we get a slow clap? And I'm proud to say that it is a black man that pulled this off. Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Give him a slow clap. Give him the slow clap. That's when you know a man really means it. But the slow clap, just, oh, man. Give them the slow clap. The game is almost over, ladies. The game is almost over. Yeah.
Questions from my panel. Jeff?
Want to make sure I hit
there
that.
You go.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm here. Thanks, Representative Parkinson, down the street from you in Nashville. Man, it's good to see you here. Know a lot of people who talk about the work that you're doing. Congratulations. Listen, there are tons of stories that you're saying. As a pastor, I have tons of people. I had a gentleman come years ago. He spent 19 years paying child support, and got into an argument with who was his wife at the time, and that was when she revealed that it wasn't his, and there was nothing he could do. There are tons of stories like this. Let me ask you about the state and the federal complex here around this, because when people say, well, it's about just getting a DNA test or not, there's an entire court system involved. Tell me about this. There's a 40% match that the state...
Now, this is the information that you guys want to pay attention to. The Department of Human Services. Pay attention.
What the federal government gets from circumstances like this. Can you talk about that so that people can know that this is bigger than just a few people taking a DNA test?
You know, thank you for the alley-oop. That felt like an alley-oop anyway. But I need Roland to understand. Roland, thank you for this platform, because you are breaking a major story nationally with this.
Yes.
Think about it. People ask me, well, why is the Department of Human Services fighting you so hard on this bill? They are throwing the kitchen sink at me to stop this bill from passing. Well, here's the reason. They get paid for people to blindly sign on a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity.
Isn't it the same old why? Isn't it always the same old why? A lot of times when you find corruption in high places and you ask the question why, doesn't it always go back to money? This is state-sanctioned extortion. Pay attention.
Things that's happening. They're chasing a 90% quota of acknowledged births in the state. They get millions of dollars for reaching that 90% quota, and then get a bonus of more millions for surpassing that 90% quota. What would happen if a person sees the DNA test and say, hey, whoa, not mine? They're not going to sign. So that quota may be in jeopardy.
Exactly. There are entities making millions of dollars off the backs of men blindly signing birth certificates and assuming the role of father, even though 30% of them are not the father. And they have these statistics. They know that 30% of these men out here taking care of children are not the biological fathers. But they also know that they are making millions of dollars off the backs of these men.
Second piece, they also get $52 million here in the state of Tennessee to have a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity program in place. This money goes to child support enforcement programs. Then thirdly, for every single child support order, they receive a 40% match from the federal government.
So you see, one hand washes the other, and it's all about money. Millions upon millions, tens of millions of dollars that they are making on the backs of men who have been deceived into taking care of children that do not belong to them. This is why paternity fraud is not deemed a crime here in this country, because these people have figured out a way to make tens of millions of dollars off of paternity fraud. So what they are doing, they're literally incentivizing women to commit paternity fraud so that they, in turn, on the back end, can rake in tens and millions of dollars off of it. This is state-sanctioned extortion. And see, here's the thing. Throughout history, time and time again, it has been proven that there are two entities that men cannot trust: government and women. Even in the Bible, there are lessons and stories that perfectly illustrate that men cannot blindly trust the government or women. When you go down there and you sign your name on the dotted line and you put your name on that birth certificate without a DNA test, you are blindly putting your trust in the government and you are blindly putting your trust in a woman. At this point, present day 2024, if you do that, you are a damn fool.
So it's state sponsored. Think about what I'm saying. This is state sponsored child theft, paternity fraud, however you want to call it, but they are literally taking children from some biological fathers.
And that seems to be an issue that gets lost in the discussion. The fact that if this child has been pinned on this guy who is not the biological father, then what that means is on the other side of that coin, there's another man out there who's been robbed of his opportunity to be a father to his child. All the way around, all across the board, this, I hate to sound like a preacher, but this is wicked. This is wicked. So when I say that paternity fraud is a human rights issue, when I say men's reproductive rights is a human rights issue, when I say mandatory DNA testing at birth is a human rights issue, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not blowing this out of proportion. This is a human rights issue that is being not only neglected, but is being exploited by several entities in this country who are making tens of millions of dollars off of it. I might even say, you know what? Somebody needs to take this to the United Nations. Go over the American government's head and go to the United Nations. This is a human rights issue. It's a human rights issue, and it needs to be dealt with like a human rights issue. I mean, there's story after story, testimony after testimony of countless men who have been put through this. You know, nobody's making this up. Obviously, this is happening. This is happening. And, you know, some of these stories have made the news. And this story here caught my attention. I was absolutely shocked that the court would attempt to put this man through what they attempted to put him through when it was more than obvious that there was no way he could possibly be the father of this child.
A Detroit man to pay child support for a kid that everybody agrees isn't his.
As 7 Action News reporter Kim Russell tells us, the court has made him a wanted man until he pays up.
When I exposed this story, I thought someone in front of the court would fix a clear injustice. Instead, a warrant has now been issued for Carnell Alexander's arrest. For him, it's deja vu. In 1991, during a traffic stop, Carnell Alexander got a shock. Police arrested him. His crime? Being a deadbeat dad.
I knew I didn't have a child, so I was kind of blown back.
He told 7 Action News he would later learn this happened because his ex needed help.
I had to turn to welfare to get assistance to take care of them, and I had to put him down as the father. That was the only way I can get assistance.
That started a paternity case.
Now, did you notice that they blurred her face out and didn't mention her name to protect her fucking identity? This woman committed fraud. This woman committed forgery. Forgery. But they blurred her face out and didn't state her name to protect her fucking identity. That bitch should be in jail. And see, this is what I'm talking about with these lazy ass, raggedy ass heifers out here who are able-bodied and can work like the rest of us, But they'd rather sit on their lazy asses and pop out bastard children, don't know who the hell the daddies are, but putting random men's names down on birth certificates and other paperwork so they could get benefits, so they could get handouts, so they could get assistance. Meanwhile, you got these elderly people who've been working all their damn lives, paying taxes all their damn lives, living on fixed incomes, and can barely get any help or assistance from a government that they've been paying taxes to their entire lives. But these raggedy hoes get all the goddamn assistance and handouts in the world for being whores who pop out bastard children. Something is wrong with that. Something is terribly wrong with that.
A process server then turned in this paper saying Carnell had been notified at a house in Highland Park. So when he didn't show up at court, he was legally listed as dad. The problem? Carnell didn't get notified. He wasn't even at a house in Highland Park. He was in prison for a crime he committed as a young man. And by the time he learned about the paternity case, judges told him it was too late. Legally, he owes the state more than $30 grand for assistance paid to care for a child.
I did not father, that I did not biologically create or spend any time with throughout my life. I find that very unfair.
Carnell says he won't pay. He tells me tomorrow he will turn himself in.
I will go to jail if I have to because I'm tired of the situation of the mishandling of the case.
I don't think that's right.
Murray Davis from the National Family Justice Association says there are thousands of men in Carnell Alexander's shoes because Michigan does not have paternity fraud laws that protect men.
Michigan does not recognize paternity fraud in the sense that a person who has been found not to be the father is relieved of those obligations.
I did reach out to friend of the court and was told that they cannot comment on open and active cases. Carnell, in the meantime, plans to go to court and turn himself.
Now, you're going to find that that is a reoccurring theme with these corrupt courts. Whenever they're confronted with their corruption, whenever they're confronted about the dirt that they're doing, that is always their response. We can't comment on open cases, or it's unethical to comment on open cases. They can do all this dirt, they can engage in all this corruption behind closed doors, but when it's brought out in the open, they have nothing to say. They don't want to discuss it.
Tomorrow with his attorney, who hopes to convince a judge to let him go free. We'll let you know what happens. Kim Russell, 7 Action News.
All right, Kim, certainly a lot of people watching that one.
Post about the state ordering.
I mean, you got to scratch your head. This makes you scratch your head and just, it's almost unfathomable that something like this could be happening in America, of all places. Like I said, America, a country that loves to use all these pretty sounding words: democracy, freedom, justice, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Yet we have a human rights violation that has been going on in this country for so long. It's been going on for so long that it's become commonplace. It's been going on for so long and has become so common that people are actually bold enough to speak against mandatory DNA testing at birth in public forums. Imagine something being so commonplace, even though it's so wrong, it's so commonplace that people are bold enough to speak against it in public forums, to speak against righting a wrong. And the main reason that they're so bold in speaking against it is because it's something that would protect men. It's not like it's something that would protect, some protected group of people, like women or LGBTQ, anything that's for the benefit or protection of women and LGBTQ. Oh, suddenly this society is all for it. But when it comes to protecting men, this society is, so many people in the society are bold enough to stand against it and will use all manner of justification, no matter how baseless the justification is, no matter how baseless their argument is, just because it's for the protection of men. And in this case, mandatory DNA testing would force women to look accountability in the eye and deal with it. And we all know accountability is like kryptonite to women.
Question one Memphis man has been trying to answer for years. Why is Shelby County Juvenile Court forcing him to pay for a child that is not biologically his? What's even more unusual, he says the judges at juvenile court have an idea who the real father is.
Yet they're still demanding he pay up. Now he's turning to On Your Side investigator Stephanie Skurlock for help.
Talk show TV makes millions off the catchphrase, "You are not the father." But the reality in Memphis is just because you're not the daddy doesn't mean Shelby County Juvenile Court won't make you pay.
I was down there in handcuffs and chains.
Over the years, Edward Bowdery had his driver's license stripped and once even found himself in handcuffs over child support payments for a child that's not his.
I would hate to see somebody else go through the same thing. I've been going through this. I mean, headaches.
This mound of paperwork shows a juvenile court judge ordered him to pay child support even before the birth.
I didn't do a voluntary acknowledgement. I didn't sign the birth certificate. All I knew is we legitimated the child in your name.
Bowdery asked several judges during several hearings for a DNA test, but no judge ordered one.
I said, how did I even get put on child support? And I never said this was my child. And they said, again, this is not what we're here for.
In 2009, he took the child himself to get a DNA test and found the son he'd supported for years was not biologically his. He took the documentation to court. The judge wouldn't accept it, but ordered a new DNA test done that showed the same results. Probability of paternity, 0%.
They never did do what they were originally supposed to do, which was give me the opportunity to take a DNA test. I was just a voice not being heard, so I guess I needed a choir.
Juvenile Court Magistrate Nancy Kessler agreed in October to allow Bowdery to disestablish paternity.
Now, wait a minute. Remember that name, Nancy Kessler. We're going to talk about her raggedy ass.
But only after, he says, she admonished him for taking it this far.
The judge stated that, well, I find it very distasteful that you're bastardizing a child.
The judge stopped the child support going.
So it's not distasteful that a woman would lie about who the child's father is in the first place. It's not distasteful that by pinning that child on this guy, she robbed some other guy of the opportunity to be a father to his child. That's not distasteful. It's not distasteful that the court that you represent was trying to pin this child on this man and force this man to give up his money and his resources for a child that was not his. None of that is distasteful. But him fighting, him exercising his right to get a DNA test to establish paternity and discovering that he's not the father, and upon discovering he's not the father, stating that he should not be responsible for a child that does not belong to him, somehow, some way, that is distasteful. So I decided I wanted to know who the hell this Nancy Kessler woman was, because it's not too often that they actually drop the names of these bastards who sit behind the bench with the gavels in their hands in these positions of authority, drowning in corruption. The bastards who are helping to perpetrate paternity fraud on hundreds of thousands and even millions of men across this country. It's not often that they actually drop their fucking name. So I wanted to look and see who the fuck is this Nancy Kessler bitch.
I'm Nancy Kessler, Chief Child Support Magistrate Judge at Juvenile Court. My job is to set child support, establish parentage, and enforce child support and modify child support. I'm passionate.
Now, wait a minute. She said her job is to establish parentage. If your job is to establish parentage, why would you tell a man that you find it to be distasteful that he got a paternity test to establish parentage? Make it make sense, Mrs. Kessler. Make it make sense.
My job because I help make families. Every time we establish parentage for a child.
Did that bitch just say she helps make families? She does not help make families. She was all too willing. She was all too willing to force that man to take care of a child that did not belong to him. So in turn, what was she doing? We already stated it. In turn, what she was doing was contributing to the mother of that child robbing the rightful father of his right to be a father to his child. Odds are that man doesn't even know he has a child out here in the world. But this bitch sitting here talking about she helps to establish parentage and create families. She's a goddamn liar.
A child, we give them both parents. And both parents have an obligation to support their child. When both parents are supporting the child wins every time. Both parents have an obligation to support their child. And I help parents by setting the child support according to the guidelines for the state of Tennessee. This is a formula established by the state. We feed the numbers that you give us into the state computer, and it calculates the child support. I have very little discretion when it comes to setting the amount of child support. And when...
Notice how she's reading from a script? She keeps looking down, reading from a script. None of this shit is coming from this bitch's cold, lifeless heart.
Parents have a change in their life. Sometimes they need their child support modified, and we can do that for them as well. All right, I'm open to hearing what the parents have to say when they need their orders modified. Sometimes you need help, and we're here to help you.
You mean like she helped this man, right? You mean like she helped him? The way she, in the words, I'll use the word they use, the way she admonished him for getting a DNA test. And, you know, admonished that's just a fancy word that means she cursed him the hell out. She yelled at him. She chastised him. She got him told. She told him off for getting a paternity test, for getting a DNA test to establish paternity. As if she is firmly of the belief that men don't have the right to know. That's what we are dealing with, gentlemen. We are dealing with a society that does not believe men have the right to know whether or not they are the father. Because we are dealing with a society that believes fathers are interchangeable, despite the fact that every statistic available bears out and proves that fathers are more important to the development of children than mothers are. I said it. I said it just like that. Every statistic available proves that fathers are more important to the development of children than mothers are. If you take a look at the statistics of children raised in single mother-headed households and compare them to the statistics of children raised in two-parent households, you see an obvious, drastic difference. However, if you compare the statistics of single father-headed households to the statistics of two-parent households, there's barely any difference in the numbers. What does that tell you? It tells you fathers are generally the better parents, the more important parents. It tells you that fathers are more important to the growth and development of children than mothers are. Take your emotion out of it and look at the statistics. Every statistic that they keep proves that that is the truth. Yet in this society, when two parents split up, the first thing they want to do is snatch the children and give them to the mama. It's ass backwards. Ass backwards.
That you're bastardizing a child.
The judge stopped the child support going forward, but Boundary still has to pay $460 a month to the mother in back pay. He doesn't believe he should have to pay anything. In fact, he believes someone owes him money.
Oh, but I thought Mrs. Kessler said she's here to help people. Well, how about she helps this man get out of having the obligation to pay back child support for a child that they have now discovered is not his? How about they find out who the hell the real daddy is, if the mama even knows, and make that motherfucker pay it? Since she is so interested in the best interests of the children, since she is so interested in creating families, as she said it, how about you find the real daddy and make that motherfucker pay? But no, you still gonna make this innocent man pay. This is state-sanctioned extortion.
$8,000 he's already paid. Administrators at juvenile court denied our request for an interview on this case, saying it's not appropriate to comment about rulings. What are the chances of him getting his money?
Remember, just like the other court in Michigan, they have the same response. It's not appropriate to discuss rulings. It's not, or it's unethical to talk about open cases. They've always got, you know, they're all reading from the same playbook. You know, we're going to do this dirt. We're going to engage in this corruption behind closed doors. And if anybody asks us anything about it, we'll just tell them, you know, it's not proper. It's not proper to discuss these matters in public, even though it's public record. Even though it's public record, it's not appropriate to discuss these matters. These people are full of shit, man. These people are full of shit. But I think we've been on here long enough. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. You know, in closing, all I can say to you is get a DNA test. Get a DNA test. And like I also stated earlier, when you're dealing with these women, you've got to be proactive and preemptive with these women. Okay? That is something that should be discussed and known up front. That you are a man who believes in taking a DNA test before you sign a birth certificate. It needs to be known up front when you are getting to know this woman, long before a baby is even in the picture, that you are a good man, you are a decent man, you plan on being a good father, the best father you can be. But before you sign a birth certificate and assume the role of father, you intend on taking a DNA test to establish whether or not you are indeed the father before you assume that role. That way, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line, when she gets pregnant, she can't act surprised. And like I said before, if you find yourself in that scenario and then all of a sudden she's surprised that you want a DNA test and she's trying to talk you out of a DNA test when you've already discussed this with her long beforehand, then you know you are dealing with a situation where you probably definitely need a DNA test. But that's something. See, you can't spring it on a woman. It can't be a surprise, because then of course she's gonna act as though, the fake outrage. All of a sudden, here comes the fake outrage. She is so hurt and she is so disrespected. And don't you trust me? You must not love me, because if you loved me, you wouldn't trust me. And I've stated on several occasions, a man's love is not synonymous with his trust. Trust ain't got nothing to do with it, ladies. A man can love you more than any other man ever has. Doesn't mean he trusts you. And even if he trusts you, doesn't mean he's going to trust you blindly. And for a man to put his name on a birth certificate, on something that important as to assume the role of father of a child without having a DNA test, that is that man blindly trusting you. There is no situation you can name in which the tables are turned and women are asked to trust men so blindly. There is no situation you can name in which women are being asked to trust men blindly on that level, on a level of which something where if it goes wrong, it has the potential to flip your entire life upside down, halt and hinder your progress and your success for years to come. At least 2 decades. So no, fellas, we've got to raise the alarm about this. We've got to speak with one voice about this, and we've got to push for mandatory DNA testing on a federal level. No child should be born without a DNA test being provided to establish paternity of that child. It should be against the law for a man to be able to sign a birth certificate without having had a DNA test to prove he is the father. It is insane that a man is able to sign a birth certificate without any proof that he is the father. Any man can just go down there and sign a birth certificate and say, I'm the pappy. That is insane. That is insane. But now we know why they allow it. Because this is state-sanctioned extortion that the government, as well as several other institutions and entities, are making tens of millions of dollars doing. It's time to bring this shit to a stop. But I've said all I've got to say. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you like the content and you want to support the content, go ahead and hit the Cash App, $BLAXKSQUAD. Speaking of, shout out to the Black Squad. Special shout out to Illuminiki Blanco. Special shout out to Mr. Truth Logic. Special shout out to Rodney Coleman, aka Abuki Cabal. So until next time, and there will be a next time, mandatory DNA testing is a human rights issue. Hit the Cash App, $ Black Squad. I am Kenyatta Black. Deuces. It's like 20 minutes shorter because I was